Hi everyone. A warm welcome to all the attendees for taking time and joining this session. I'm Shrilata and I have with me CA Krishna Upadhyay sir, co-founder of Advait. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Shilata.
So yeah, this is our second webinar on the series Strategic Finance Office. In our previous webinar, we had covered some critical questions on the concept of Strategic Finance Office itself, where we busted some myths, misconceptions, and when, where, and how a strategic finance office can fit into various places in a business process. If you haven't watched it yet, you can watch the recorded one. We have streamed it on YouTube. Please go and watch it. And in this webinar, we will be sharing used cases from our own experience with insightful discussions around them. And these are focused towards highlighting that the strategic finance office is not specifically tagged to a specific layer in a business organization. And if you see a strategic finance office, it's not an abstract word coming from somewhere. So it can fit into wherever there are gaps in the business organization's process. So we are going to focus more towards that through the case studies from our experiences. So without getting delayed, let's get started. So the first case study that I'm going to narrate is a case study where it is of a medium MSME case where they had approached us for advisories and insights on some specific matters on their expansion and growth plans. And obviously for overall supervision from a very high level finance operation. In this case, the growth plans were in place, finance team was in place, and overall in the surface, it was looking promising for us. When we got into the operations and structure, what we saw is there was a finance manager handling a team under him and who had a decent understanding of business as well because he was there with that organizations for quite some time. So that also looked promising for us. And then the next layer, when we got deeper into operations layer, we observed a critical thing, which was the finance team under him. There was a high attrition rate. We could see it evidently. And what was impacting here? So there arises two critical issues. One, the routine finance operations were not happening on a timely basis. And there was lack of stability in the entire team, and it was affecting a lot on routine finance operations. It could be data reports, data mismatches, reconciliation issues, and various other things. The second issue that we noticed here was the finance manager was spending innumerable amount of time in trying to hold things together, balancing the instability in his team. And this resulted in a greater deviation because he was not able to put value into what he was expected to do. Rather, he was trying to balance instability in his team and trying to cope up with certain things which was not happening. And there were delays in various aspects. At one end, if you see, the founder had approached us and he was looking for financial insights and he wanted to align that with his growth and expansion plan. But at the other end, if you see, the data gathering itself was scattered and it was not aligned, and data was all around basically, and there were data mismatches and reconciliations were not in place, like I mentioned previously. What we did, than directly jumping on to preparation of financial insights and advisories, we focused and we put our efforts more on rebuilding the base. We presented our remote model uh, and we tried to plug in our strategic finance office there at the base level where it needed the most. In a month and a half, we could see things getting stabilized. We could ensure that even the finance manager was able to take control of things since the system was in a better shape, and he was able to put his efforts towards more valuable aspects of what he was supposed to do. And we were able to arrive at meaningful insights because of data structuring, process structuring. And this plugin was necessary because without that, there was no alignment we could see between founder's vision and at operations level, because the data, if it has to come to an insight input level or insights level, there should be there was a gap, and that needed a bridge. So we could pitch in and make sure that the gap was filled in. And we had put all additional processes to make sure that the monitoring happens on a routine basis and not just a one-time activity. And moreover, the entire system was ready to scale and support the scaling vision of the founder. So this was the case study that we experienced recently, and we are a retainer for that particular client. And now we can see things getting stabilized, and on a routine mode, the operations, the monitoring aspects, the supervisions aspects are happening on a continuous basis, and the reports, insights are in place, aligning with founder's vision. Krishna sir, I would like to add, I would like you to add some insights based on this entire experience.
Yeah. So this entirely started with a conversation between me and the founder of this organization, which was a family business. So it was a small family business, and they were looking at a substantial investment and growth into expanding their current operations and wanted to build further. They wanted to enhance their brand value, business, and all of that. So basically, they approached us to evaluate and give some kind of a advice as to how they could go about doing, are they thinking about it right, and all of that. While that was happening, that was the first very casual conversation that we had with the founder over there. Subsequently, when there were more meetings we did in which the finance manager also participated, what we realized is that we started seeing that finance manager had almost given up thinking that, or rather had started thinking firefighting is his job. Firefighting on a daily basis, trying to train the team, trying to eventually keep on monitoring continuously the people under him was what he thought was his primary job. And while on one side the founder was trying to explain and expedite doing so many things, they continuously we thought and we saw that the finance manager was reluctant. And what we did is we told the founder, look, we will one advise you on what you have to do, but we feel that something's missing. There are some missing links. There are some dots to be connected. Then we had a detailed conversation with the finance manager. What we understood is that while he had been there with that group for over 15 years by then, and he was a fairly senior guy, he knew his work, he was doing what was required to be done. But he was almost believing that it's impossible for this company to grow. It was impossible for there to be insightful information that could get passed on to the founder. And he had thought that his job was to actually file the compliance returns on a monthly basis and then get the audits done and conclude the work. So therefore, what we told the founder is, apart from solving the future problem, we will solve the problem of the present. And we told them that, look, your finance manager is a fabulous guy. He's an excellent guy. Let's bring in the strategic finance element into your finance function. Let's first plug in the bottom level resources. You are trying to hire some rookies and juniors to kind of do the work. If you keep continuing to do that, your finance manager will be stressed and you will not get any kind of a support from him. So what we did is we plugged in accounts payable, receivable resources, not even on a dedicated model, on a shared service model, because that was enough for that particular client. And then we made sure that we put in place a mechanism where an assistant finance manager, which is one layer below the existing person, was also plugged in into their entire finance function in a shared model. All of these working out of our center remotely. And over a period of, like Srilata said, in about month and a half to two, we started seeing that there was a visible change in the bandwidth of the finance manager. While on one side, our advisory team continued to work and explore possibilities of what could happen, what is the future, simulate various possibilities, do a sensitivity analysis and all of that, we convinced the founder to state that, look, don't look at hiring some junior general finance and accounts people. We will give you specialists at a cost which is also lower, attrition proof, near attrition proof, may not be completely attrition proof because we are all dealing with people and their expectations change. But we put in place a system where all of these juniors were plugged in, and the accounting, the compliance management, the data became live onto their ERP. Every day's entries were posted immediately. Data analytics was enabled, whereby the finance manager could start seeing as to how the numbers were flowing, what is happening, was it properly approved. They had a store somewhere far off, there was a warehouse. They started monitoring the warehouse efficiency well. All of this happened. What also we actually sort of we knew it, but we also proved to this founder of this company is that we told them that when you hire finance specialist at a bottom level, if they don't have a homogeneity, they don't have very similar kind of people working around, they also feel left out. There are one or two finance people, they're not motivated to do the job, they don't understand the vision, what the founder is trying to set or a finance manager is trying to sort of tell them. They were just doing this as a monotonous task without giving much attention to detail. There were errors, consistently chasing deadlines, leaves, when you deny leaves, attrition, etc. So this was a continuous feature. They had seen that happening over 4 to 5 years. We were able to make sure that that foundational layer was fixed. Through this, what we want to communicate is that, like Shilata told in her opening remark, strategic finance office is not only a top-down sort of an approach. It is not about bringing in place an expensive CFO, an expensive consultant on board. It is actually trying to identify those parameters which are very critical success factors for solving a problem, identifying that, plugging that to the extent that is required, and making sure that it starts functioning. We did this maybe about a year and a half back to this client. Since then, we continue to be retainers for them. We have in fact upped our engagement with them and not just provide the junior layer anymore. Our top layer has also become a consistent feature with this client, where we act as a bouncing board for ideas, for financial decision making for this founder. And then they are slowly making progress in their business. The new plant that they were trying to put up is just about to launch now. And yeah, things have started working really well. Like I told, though there is attrition in the people that they are working for them, but the client never knows that there is an attrition. The client never knows that the junior team has actually changed. So this is one case study that we wanted to bring it to all of you.
So in this case study, I also feel that the strategic finance office as a function is very dynamic, because in this case, if you see, sir, what started as advisory or one-time activity now is on a routine basis. So it happened to be a retainer client for us. So through plugging in gap of strategic finance office, now still we are serving that client and ensuring that the things whatever we had made sure that are in place are continuing in place and are monitored on a routine basis. So yeah, so this is about our one of the case studies where we wanted to highlight that the strategic finance office is not restricted for any specific layer. It can pitch in as a plugin for any layers of the business organizations based on its structure, operations, vision, and mission. So moving on to the next case study, this is another interesting use case of our experience. And it's a case of an MSME with a decent finance team and growth plans again. So in this case, they had approached us to assist in getting a credit facility under CGTMSE scheme, which is a government-backed scheme, and they were eligible for availing credit facilities. So this is a collateral credit, free credit facility available for MSMEs, where they can avail a term loan or a working capital up to a limit of 5 crores. Here we were approached to assist in getting it sanctioned, getting that particular credit facility sanctioned, aligning with bankers' requirement. Basically, it was for acting as a bridge between the management and the banker. There would be projections to be submitted, financial reports to be submitted, purpose and requirements to be explained, along with allied formalities in getting the credit facility sanctioned. If you see this case, uh, was there absence of finance team in that organization? No, there was a finance team, and there was a head for that team as well. But they were all tuned for doing day-to-day operations executions and routine compliances and a few status reports on a routine basis. However, when we pitched in, when we were approached here, we observed that a critical layer was missing here, which is understanding the need and facilitating necessary financial information or insights and coordinating with respective stakeholders. Here, our role was to make sure that whatever the credit facility they were looking for, that needs to be sanctioned. For that, we need to approach the banker, explain the purpose, along with respective financial information and projections on a routine basis. That's when the founder would need our requirement. So though there was a finance team, we had to assess certain things, make sure that some additional processes were placed in to make sure that we get the data to make sure those projections are prepared, and it is not one-time task. Initially, there would be formalities to provide some project report and financial information. It doesn't end there, right? So on a routine basis, we'll have to continue providing those project reports and financial information to make sure that we are still able to repay and we are still able to justify what funds we need. So this was another case study where we pitched in as strategic finance office and bridge this gap with the founder. So for your insights in this case.
So in this case, the client approached us stating that in India, there is, like Srilata explained, there is a scheme which is a credit guarantee scheme by the government of India, through which the banks can lend a collateral-free loan, whether for a term loan or a working capital facility. The client approached us saying that I want to apply for this. I hear this is a very important tool, and with this, I'll be able to sort of get good growth into what I want to do. So we told them that, look, we are not a loan syndicating company. We don't do loan syndication where we take you to various banks, try to get these loans and all of that. There are professional loan syndicators. Why don't you work with them? But somehow the client here saw value in what we were talking and the kind of information we already had about this scheme. So he said that let's divide the responsibility between you and me. I will try and approach as many banks as possible. I will build the relationship that is required with the banker. However, you support me in everything else that is required to present myself better and convince the banker to extend this credit facility under the collateral-free facility under the credit guarantee scheme. So we said that, okay, now that you have placed so much confidence on us, it's on us to take this up and do it. Firstly, they had a fantastic finance team. So the finance manager and the people under them were extremely good. So they knew their job. They've been doing it quite well. What was required was to actually curate a story quite well to the banker as to explain to them what line of business are they, why do they need the funds that is required for them, and actually prepare the entire project report and the projections that were required to justifiably demonstrate that this is a business which can scale and this facility is going to be helpful for them, and also this facility is eligible under the scheme of the government to be approved of a loan. What was required here was that it was not the bottom layer of executives nor the finance manager, because they were already present. And neither it was the top layer of a CFO is required, because this is a pretty straightforward case, not too much of a strategy involved. That's exactly where a strategic finance office comes into play, where we plugged in the element of a VP or a director finance, whereby the objective was gather the data, go on the drawing board, put the data across, convince to the banker through a proper project report to state that why this is a viable project and why they should fund, and also prepare the founder to sort of tell the story well to the bankers to ensure that the bankers, one, are convinced about it. And of course, this is not to create a story which is not there. They already had a great story. It's just about ensuring that that got articulated quite well before the bankers. Build the confidence that is required before the panel of the bankers to ensure that they got the funding that was done. It was a task which was difficult. It was not a very easy task. We did present this before three bankers and eventually were able to secure this funding. Once that is done, what also becomes important is to maintain a credible track record. A track record of submitting the information to the bankers on a monthly basis as a precondition for the loan, ensuring that their audited financials are submitted to them on time, and made sure that negotiations with the bankers are done to reduce the bank charges and the other levies that they do during the course of the year. We were able to consistently maintain this kind of support to the client and ensure that as a strategic finance plugin or a consultant to the client, we didn't just prepare the client for this, but also ensured that the monitoring continued. This was a while ago. This is a slightly aged case study for us, and we were able to do this, and we continue to support the client in more than one function right now. Of course, we continue as their VP's director finance role, but there are continuously different things that the client is trying to do, establishing newer lines of business and all of that, and we continue to help them. And the bankers are also quite happy. In fact, in this case, what also happened is that one of the bankers referred another lead to us and said that, hey, they have come to us approaching for a loan. Why don't you prepare them the same way that you did for this other client, and then why don't you present it to us so that it becomes easy for us to lend for this kind of business. So this is another case study which is also important, which drives the point to state that strategic finance office is like a fraction of many things. You can pick and choose what you need. We will help pick and choose that and make sure that the synergies between the respective client and us works well.
Yeah. So to add to your point, sir, in this case, I think rather in every case, when we take the concept of strategic finance office, when we pitched in, we could have accepted one role. But over a period of time, the role also gets evolved because it's a plug-in role, right? So wherever the strategy is required to make sure that the gaps are fixed and things are aligned. So the role is also going to evolve over the period of time.
Absolutely. So, as a strategic finance office, the objective is not just to strategize, but also to implement, run, replan. Some things may fail, some things may not work. Sometimes play the role of a junior accountant, sometimes play the role of a accounts payable manager, sometimes play the role of a internal control executive or a manager, sometimes play the role of a strategic consultant, sometimes become a CFO and plan for the future, all of this. So what happens in a strategic finance sort of a plugin is that since it is fractional, it's not expensive, because you may not need all of this continuously. You may need this at different points of time in different manner and in different proportions. Therefore, you could evolve, foresee what is happening, plug in only so much what is required, plug that out so that the load on the client is also reduced, and it ensures that the engine keeps running, and clients don't have to run to different pillars and posts to actually get the right kind of mix. It also is important to understand that as strategic finance consultants, we don't claim to say we know it all. What we claim is to say that we can identify as many things as required. And if we don't know, we will get the right kind of people to plug in, come. Of course, it may come at a cost, but the right kind of people are brought in at the right time to make sure that the things start running for every single client.
Exactly. That's right. So yeah, that's about our second case study. So I think we have 3 or 4 minutes left. So I would like to, I have a third case study on digital transformation. Quickly, I will just give a brief so that quickly you can give insights on those digital transformation case study that we had, and then we can quickly wind this up. So this is a case wherein when we pitched into a client where there was a traditional system of accounting that was going on in their entire finance system. However, when there was a market need which required real-time reports, which required real-time insights for immediate decision making. So in that client, so the digital transformation journey, in that case, the major role of ours was to convince the client to agree for the digital transformation, because they were all used to a traditional system of accounting. So the transformation convincing itself was a major role that involved before even implementing. So after that, we implemented and things started happening, and the client was happy, and we took over other roles in the entire layers. So that's a different story. But on this portion, I think quickly, if you can give some insights.
Yeah. So first mistake that most people do, which this client was also doing, was that they thought the digital transformation is one, not for them. Second, they also thought that digital transformation is a destination. What we convinced the client, which was the hardest part to do here, because they were forced to do it. There were some market needs which forced them to move into a much more advanced system of ERPs and maintaining accounts and reconciliations on a real time, plugging in a e-commerce platform to ensure that the inventory is tracked and all of that. First, we convinced the group, the founders here, it was a board, we convinced them to state that one, you need to have some patience in digital transformation. Second, it's a journey and it's not a destination, because once you transform some parts of your finance operations from manual, semi-automatic to automatic, the power of that is such that some other areas will also start needing transformation, and the results will start coming, and then it's quite exciting and enticing to actually go and start changing that as well. So therefore, the first we prepared them mentally, psychologically, and said that, look, let's take one use case or a few things in your organization, transform that, put in place a very intelligent system. Then once that's done, which is a critical need, then we'll move into the second, we'll move into the third. That way we were able to bring them up to speed of digital transformation to some level. Of course, every time we took it as a sprint, fixed a certain budget, fixed a certain timeline and an objective, achieved, then moved on. Then something in the previously achieved one actually opens up, plug that again, and kept moving on. So that's the manner in which, as a strategic finance consultant here, also to some extent using our digital process automation capability, we fuse the two of it to convince the client that, look, when this is happening, you will see that some things are suddenly becoming very slow or very fast. You need to have the patience. Once that period is crossed and the teething issues move away, you start seeing the impact that comes by. So this way we were able to make sure that a large part of not just their finance operations, but certain other connected operations were also transformed. This eased up significant bandwidth of one of the board member who was also acting CFO. It gave a lot of confidence to them to do more. Now they have moved on into something really big, and we continue to advise them on some of those matters. But yeah, this part of it was a very challenging task for us, because it was not easy to convince them to hold their horses and actually not jump in onto things and declare something as not working. Because we told them, yes, it looks like it is not working in the first few days, but then eventually it will start working.
Yes, true. So in all the three case studies that we picked up, so we wanted to reiterate this thing that the strategic finance office is not restricted for one layer. It acts as plug-in wherever the requirements are there. So this was all we wanted to cover in this webinar. With this, we have come to the end of this webinar. And in our next webinar, we have picked up two more interesting case studies at some advanced level. So we are going to have that webinar in a short period of time. You can stay tuned. Stay tuned till we announce the schedule of that webinar. And meanwhile, if you want to know more, you can visit our website, read our blogs, and subscribe to our newsletters and stay updated with key finance insights. I would like to thank once again for all the attendees for joining this session. Have a good time. Thank you.
Yeah, so if there are any questions, do write to us in the interim. We'll be happy to answer. This video will also be posted on YouTube. To share with the others who may need and want to know more. You could leave us a question on our social media handle, or you could drop us an email, or you could reach out to us through our website or YouTube channel as a comment, and we'll be happy to answer. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.